Goddess worship is as old as the Stone Age. We found archaeological evidence of human religions, which were sculptured images and cave paintings of female figures, demonstrating goddess worship. We found them in different parts of the world, such as Northern Asia, France, Spain, Italy, and others. They were known as Venuses, and some of them are more than 25,000 years old. Later, with the earliest civilization, the Sumerians, in Mesopotamia, we also observed a great worship of the Divine Mother. From 4500 to 4000 BC, we had the worship of Inanna. Inanna was the queen of heaven and earth. She was really involved with the social organization and the redistribution of resources in the Sumerian community. After the Sumerian civilization, we attended the emergence of the Egyptian civilization. And the Egyptians, just as the Sumerians, were matrilineal and matriarchal. From 3100 to 2686 BC, we had a number of goddesses prominent in Egypt, such as Nut, goddess of the sky, or Isis, goddess of wisdom, among many others. Goddesses were really involved in the continuity of divine kingship. Isis means throne, throne of the Pharaoh, mother of the king. From 2500 to 1500 in the Indus Valley, we found terracotta figurines of mother goddesses. Goddess worship in ancient India was really different from the Egyptian civilization or the Sumerian civilization because the goddess worship was connected and associated with her male counterpart. So there was no major focus on the goddess until the 7th century in Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism. The goddess was mostly worshipped through her more ferocious aspects with Kali and Kandi.
Israelites also worshipped the goddess. They worshipped Canaanite goddesses.
Asherah and Anat. Slowly, the worship of these goddesses turned into a personified worship through Shekinah, which was the presence of God on earth. For a long period, Shekinah was the intermediary between God and the people of Israel. But in order to establish a strong monotheism, she was totally removed from the religious tradition. In pre-Islamic Arabia, we had many polytheistic religions and a deep worship of different goddesses, such as El-Lat, El-Uzza, and Manat. They were worshipped in different temples, such as the Kaaba in Mecca. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, in order to convert many people in Mecca to Islam, used the names of the goddesses for people to follow his path. He is said to have received a revelation from the angel Gabriel. And these verses are in the Quran, and they were later called the Satanic verses. These verses are part of the Surat An-Najm. Muhammad says, "Have you thought of El-Lat and El-Uzza, and about the third deity, El-Manat?" Quran 53:19-20.
Later, Muhammad claimed that he was tempted by Satan and that it was not a divine revelation, but the work of the devil.
So how did the fall of the feminine happen? After tens of thousands years of goddess worship, men used religion to change the balance of power. So we moved from a matriarchy to a patriarchy 3,000 to 3,500 years ago. This balance of power was only possible through the creation of the concept of one male god. For instance, in the Greek tradition, we had first an earth mother, Gaia. From this earth mother, corrupted males created different Olympian goddesses. They all had a distinct role, and they were all ruled by Zeus, the one male god overruling the goddesses. Many tribes from the east and northeast invaded continents and brought with them the concept of an aggressive male god to serve their own selfish desires and their thirst for power. If at the beginning of the Pharaoh's era we observed an equality between men and women, through that time we slowly assisted a destitution of the power of the goddess, with now the female pharaoh only seen as the spouse, submissive, and servant. We're all familiar with the story of Genesis and Eve tempting Adam with her sinful apple. With this story, man created this really untrustworthy image of the woman. Between the 10th and the 14th century, 100,000 free-thinking women were burnt at the church's command. And this was really typical at that time. If a woman would step aside her prescribed role as a mother raising children or managing a household, and obedient, of course, to her husband, she would soon become a target for the Christian church, just as the Puritans in the 17th century, who were looking for a female victim to be accused of witchcraft when a man would die of sickness in the community. The same tradition is still happening today in Papua New Guinea, where women are tortured and burned alive, accused of witchcraft after the death of a man in the community. There's little protection for women in poorest regions of the planet. It also still happens in rural areas of India, where women are still prosecuted just because a man accused them of witchcraft. The fall of the feminine was only possible through the manipulation of religion and propaganda. Religion gave to men the ultimate power to control society, but also female sexuality and fertility. The words of a great jealous and angry God cannot be discussed or criticized, and this gives all powers to men to use women as they wish. The demonization of women played a huge role in imposing this patriarchal system upon women. From Genesis to sages going to the top of a mountain to avoid women, to avoid to marry women, and to have to deal with their evil charms. Until today, we are witnessing this demonization of the goddess. For instance, in the popular culture of Mexico, they used the ancient goddess of death, Mictecacihuatl, ruler of the underworld, source of life, to turn her into the worship of La Santa Muerte. La Santa Muerte is a protective figure for criminals of drug cartels, great icon of the narco corridos, which is a traditional popular music in Mexico that praises drug trafficking, delinquency, abuse, misogyny, fear, and death. Believers prayed to La Santa Muerte for more weapons, drugs, money, wishing death upon enemies or winning over the enemy through murder. Just as Kali, the dark goddess, the origin of human existence, the dark womb, everything. But the patriarchal man turned into a demon monster. She is used now by followers as a way to harm others through black magic rituals, and she is offered blood and animal sacrifices. We have seen how the tradition of goddess worship was corrupted for men to control women. And this truly affected our collective consciousness. This truly affected us on a cellular level. And until today, as women, we still carry the suffering and the oppression of this dark past.
You know